stumble in the dark. You kept pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds, and when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call me. Just call me. Just call me. Just call me.
It's Austria. It's the new track here with us at ESBN, a place where you can see some amazing high-speed thrills and spills. And when it comes to open wheel, on top of that, it is Draft Train City, as everyone tries to work out how and where they can find the magic overtakes to get exactly what they want. Championship in many facets that can be as close can be. And here with us, the eFormula Series, season number 3, finds itself here as the 4th to last round of this championship. This is where you start putting the big money down on the table. If you want to build a points gap into the final 3 rounds, now's the time to set up and do it. I'm Jake Sperry, joined alongside, of course, by Frank Marchese, here to bring you all of the coverage from this Styrian track here in Spielberg. And, well, Frank, we're just heading towards the end of practice right now, but this is truly one of the few remaining tracks out there which is high speed from start to finish. It's not got anything of Mickey Mouse sections where it's all about just being slow for the sake of it. This is a true race circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a true high-speed racing circuit, just as you put it. And it's a lot of fun to watch these races here. It does get a little bit tedious in qualifying because, as you mentioned, it is a drafting circuit. You really need to be up behind somebody in order to put a very, very good lap time down. But this is one of the better tracks that iRacing has put into the simulator over the last little while.
It certainly has been, and we're talking about right now a European flair for new iRacing tracks coming onto the service at this stage. Of course, we do know that we have had the Hockenheim ring come in onto the service. The Red Bull ring. It is expected next season that the Hungaro ring potentially finds itself onto server, as was predicted and aforementioned by iRacing earlier on in the year. But still some amazing tracks to try and understand, and this Red Bull ring certainly is one of them at this point in time. But let's talk about, though, the championships as things stands right now, and let's start with the drivers' standings. Overall, it's very swiftly becoming a 2-horse race up at the top of this championship by 2 drivers who last season were either A, not here, or B, were absolutely nowhere near when it came to the top of the order. Dave Guild, 6 points the margin over Pavel Vasiliev for Atomic Racing in second, and it's 18 points back of Vasiliev for Ilbrink, and then a further 8 for Javier Alvarez. It's starting to shape up, you would say, at this point here, Frank, like it's a 2-horse championship.
Yeah, very well could be 3, though, because we know what Ilbrink is capable of doing. We know how quick he can be when he limits the mistakes. So this very well could still be a 3-horse race. Ilbrink's not out of it. Honestly, Alvarez nor Boozy are actually out of this thing. Danny Hoekstra pretty much out of it now because he's actually at the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend. So he's not here tonight. So there are 5 that could still technically win it. But you're right, it's looking like a 2 or 3 horse race for the end of this thing.
Certainly is. Let's talk Teams Championship as well. That also starts to track out as a 2-horse championship. Of course, Radicals Online only have the 1 team member to go and score points with at this stage, so I doubt we'll see them up near the very top. But Tulip Racing, Atomic Racing, just 4 points there around this one at the moment, and a real opportunity, you'd say, today for Atomic Racing to take advantage. No Danny Hoekstra, as we said, so Atomic Racing, you'd say, Frank, has the ability to go out there and stand pretty strong up there near the top.
And look at where Atomic Racing is right now in the practice times. They're the only 2 drivers to get into the 16-second bracket. They're the top 2 drivers on pace. Guild was sitting there around 4th or 5th. So you're right. This is a very good chance for Atomic not just to retake the lead in the team's championship, but one where they can really get up there.
Yeah, and they definitely want to get it up and get it up scoring strongly and quickly here with today's efforts out there on circuit. Let's talk privateers, though, just for the moment. On top of that, it has been IM Keyman's keep control for the majority of the racing that we've seen. 33 points from IM Keyman, 18 from Mark Ponick, who started late in this championship, and arguably so did IM Keyman, missing the first round of the privateer standings due to the fact that he was teaming up with the likes of those of Jan Steltenpool. They both went their separate ways. Now Mark Ponnick's got 15 points to go and chase down at this stage as we find ourselves on the outlaps.
Yeah, absolutely is. That Privateer Championship, we've covered 3 seasons. We've covered all 3 seasons of the eFormula Series. Keeman won the first one. Last year, I believe it was Christoph Boozy that won it last year. And now Keeman back on top. These are guys that really, Keeman especially, is a guy who deserves to be on a good team.
Certainly does. He's got so much pace, but sometimes he finds himself in a bit of trouble when it comes out to putting some laps. Let's look, though, at a brand new driver as we take a lap around this Red Bull Ring. Christophe Chiard is out there at this moment in time looking for a good time. That won't help the start of the lap at all. Having a huge moment was Christoph Boozy through the final corner, and just like that, that has really hampered the start of the run for Chiard, who makes his way into the Niki Lauda corner, up the hill on the right, and then you descend down the hill once again, looking towards turn number 2. You've got a small flick going along left to go through this section, but back up the hill, spot your braking point a little bit late because of that rise into Remus corner. Turn number 2, very easy to get too aggressive through here and just go straight on through the exit of the corner, and easy to spin as it's uphill off of the exit on top of that. But then you descend once again back downhill. It's like a roller coaster here. This is Schlussgold corner, turn 3, and then through the right it goes on for an eternity off of the exit. So you need faith in the grip that this car has. And you've got these 2 very difficult left-handers, the first of which is Rauch corner here. The first real challenge, and then the second challenge, of course, is a light brake into Verth corner. And then on the exit, you've got to be careful of the curbs. Turn 7 does not have itself, turn 6, I should say, doesn't have itself really anything of a name around it. But then into Jochen Rindt and finally finished off at Red Bull Mobile. This is a lap around this place. Chiard looking pretty good, actually, I'd say, with that lap. Very nice and neat, slightly scare off the start. 18.9, nothing to shake a stick at.
No, it's a very solid lap time for Chiard to open it up, and you're right, that big moment coming out of the final corner there, right at the start of the lap, really is what shook it up. I'd expect him to be a little bit off of Pavel Vasiliev, who just took P1 right now to 17.017, and he's flying solo. No drafting help there.
No drafting at all, and 1.2 seconds clear of anybody else. And around this place, finding 1.2 seconds is a very tall order to find. But these first times are sighted times, especially when you talk about the track conditions here today. The sim time is just creeping towards 8 o'clock in the morning. The track temp is 22 degrees, so this track should only get hotter as qualifying and the race goes on. It's 45 laps here today, an hour and 5 minutes, as Paul Ilbrink looks to gear up for a good effort. It's worth noting that track limits around this place, iRacing have been very, very alert to them around this Red Bull Ring, and they look very, very tough to stay within the lines on. So ultimately, the best thing you need to understand is you're not going to be seeing a lot of the Formula 1 style will take all the curb and a bit more. Oh no, you're staying within the lines, otherwise you're hitting those incident point limits.
Yeah, not just the incident point limits, but those big sausage curbs as well. They're actually quite lenient in the final couple of corners. You can get rather wide out there over the last couple of corners in that final section. You can take that rather wide. So they have been rather strict around the rest of the racetrack, but they know you're going to be pushing in those last couple of corners, so they were a little bit more lenient there.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to make sure that you are pushing to the beyond the limits and a bit more, as Christoph Boozy jumps up to second on a 17.6 out there at the moment. Ilbrink making his charge then towards the line, using the final couple corners to an advantage, and over it's a 17.8 only though, so that's a real surprise off of that first lap to be 0.8 of a second adrift of pace at this moment, as championship leader Dave Guild will make a charge over towards the line, and that is a statement message. A 16.8 sets pole position by almost 0.2.
That was an absolute flyer there by Dave Guild, and it's mostly around here because there aren't many corners and technical bits of this racetrack where you can make up time. Corner exits are going to be absolutely monumental around here. You have to be good on corner exit if you want to get a fast lap so you could set up to get the highest top speed possible down these long straightaways. that is where you said it's going to take a lot to gain 1.2 seconds around here. But if you're going to gain it anywhere, that's where you're going to do it.
Javier Alvarez goes third then, 1:17.2 with that lap time. So very much in play. But we talk about drafting qualifying. We also need to talk about drafting the race. I think the draft accounts here for about half a second, especially when you've got 8 uses of the DRS, which is pushed to pass in these Formula Renault 3.5s. This is a very tough track to go and make sure that everything works in accordance, you could say, around this wonderful, wonderful circuit. 14 drivers here today will be looking to take on the challenge and hopefully find the results that they have been looking for time and time again. But you also have to talk about that rundown to the end of the season. It's another quick track next week at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Following that is Motegi, which is an all-around threat of a track. Very difficult to go and get correct. And then, of course, we are finishing off that championship rather wonderfully here with us at Circuit of the Americas. Again, another all-round circuit.
Yeah, Coda's a very technical racetrack. I absolutely adore Twin Ring Motegi. I was so excited to see that come up on the schedule. And then I believe this will be my first trip, at least, to Montreal. I know it'll be the series' first trip to Montreal in quite some time. They weren't there last year, and I think we only did the last 2 races of season 1. So it's going to be a very fun and technical second half to this season, especially when you go down to the last 2 races, because Motegi, while it's not as technical as, say, Circuit of the Americas, it could certainly wring your neck if you don't respect the circuit.
Speaking of wringing the neck, Javier Alvarez has just gone to P2, and Jeff Browning, what a qualifying he's on at the moment. He's just got himself up into 5th position in the number 63 machine. That's some wonderful work to put himself up in P5. So it seems like we are getting a few times coming up in on the board where everyone can be just a little bit happier than what they have been previously. Those times just slowly advancing as they try and search the limits, find a bit more. And this is what we've seen time and again here in qualifying. We don't often see a complete effort that goes in of drivers getting exactly what they want immediately. They just seem to find a little bit more here and a little bit more there, and that's the way that these qualifying sessions have tended to go.
Yep, absolutely. And we know that guys like Vasiliev and Boozy can go quicker. Those were the only 2 drivers in the 16-second bracket during practice, so they're still trying to find the limits of this racetrack. And it's a tendency in this simulator for the racetrack to feel different from practice into qualifying. So that's what these guys are also messing around with. Some guys it helped, some guys it may have hurt a little bit.
Vasiliev out there on his lap in 3rd position, had Alexander Rogenbach down there on a 1:21.2 to try and navigate around. 5 seconds adrift at the moment is Rogenbach. I expect him to find a couple seconds at least in terms of his time. Has traditionally been populating the rear of these grids so far this season. But Vasiliev gearing up then for another one as he tries to go on through. And this is, again, cold conditions, so it's very likely that we're going to be seeing drivers oversteering through corners, struggling. And speaking of struggles, Ian Keeman off the road again is struggling to get a lap down on the board.
Yeah, Keeman right now, this is his 5th attempt at a lap, and this one's not going to count either for the pilot of that number 75, Benetton. It's certainly, this is a track that you want to push the limits, but sometimes you can overstep your bounds, and it can become quite frustrating. And from there, you just keep making more and more mistakes, and it just gets worse and worse and worse.
This can be a very frustrating circuit to try and get everything all situated and sorted. Let's also remember it's going to be a tight run here towards turn number 1 at Niki Lauda up the hill. That anti-cut curb on the inside and the outside isn't going to be making life easy for anybody going through there. And of course, there's no long lap penalties either, of course, on the outside of turn number 1, which was implemented by MotoGP as part of the scan that is here. And of course, no chance for bikes yet to jump onto the iRacing service. Probably won't happen in a very fair while. But top 4 seemingly clear of everybody else. Christoph Boozy is that driver in 4th position at this moment, 0.3 of a second back with 5 minutes left and a little bit less in qualifying. So you now start to wonder if that 77 can be a really nice, I would say, accompaniment to the 11 of Vasiliev.
Yeah, certainly, and it's nice to see that these guys not only are back on the pace, but that they're on the pace and very close to each other. Over these last couple of weeks, it's been either Boozy way up or Vasiliev way up with Boozy, or vice versa, kind of like 4 or 5 positions off. These two are right on top of each other here tonight. Vasiliev a 117.017 to an 093 for Boozy. So these guys racing like a team here today.
They certainly are racing like a team. I keep an eye as well on qualifying. Keeman's just crossed the line, put a banker down, an 18.4, only good enough for 10th position, and spins it through turn 1 into the barriers there, almost doing exactly the same as what Lando Norris did in free practice, and he said he ran out of talent there. But Esteban Guadarrama down to Leonardo Fabian, split by just a 10th of a second. Shows you how the mid to late pack seems incredibly close here today in qualifying.
Yeah, and it's going to be close all race long because, as you mentioned, it's not a technical racetrack. It's a very straight line, top speed oriented racetrack. So that kind of racing brings the pack closer together. You do need to be good in order to get onto the corners, to get through the corners that you have to get through, because they are rather tight and they are rather tricky. But this is a top speed racetrack, and that tends to bring the field closer together.
Certainly does, especially in a short lap like this. Javier Alvarez goes for a big slide, trying to get as much as possible out of the times. I've seen Dave Guild a couple times go around searching for that lap time, but this really, it feels quite different. Ilbrink out there in 7th position is a second down there or thereabouts by about 100th of a second in qualifying, not where we expect him. Ian Keeman is down there 1.6 seconds, not where we expect him in qualifying here. And when we're down to the final 2 minutes here, Frank, a grid which could be very mixed up with some big names caught a little bit further back in the field, this might just have to be a reliance on race pace.
Yeah, and Ilbrink was talking during the pre-race saying that he's not sure if this machine, that his rig is actually going to be able to run this racetrack. So that might be messing with him a little bit. The computer might be running a little bit slower for him as compared to other racetracks. And you can tell he is not on this place. We saw a replay of him going through this exact corner here, spinning out not that long ago. So Ilbrink not starting this day off particularly well.
No, certainly not. And if Paul Ilbrink is struggling with the screen jumping up and down, and the screen just glitching and freezing a little bit due to the frame rate, as Ilbrink goes hard into the fence there, into the pit wall, and that will be that then for Ilbrink's qualifying. No higher than 7th, because Mark Ponick had improved up to 5th place on a 17.2. So Ilbrink with it all to do then in the race, the inaugural champion, a former Black Stripe Pro here in iRacing. So ultimately a huge amount of trouble coming into play then in those get-goes. But down to 50 seconds here, Frank. It's looking very, very desperate for drivers who probably only have 1 lap left.
Yeah, Alvarez, you just saw it took a second for the camera to pick him up, but Alvarez had spun off on his, what could have been his final lap. He was green in Sector 1, personal best. He's going to get a chance at another lap here, so Alvarez is going to be really pushing here on this final lap.
Push indeed, and Dave Guild is the chase. He's only got a 10th of a second to find here Javier Alvarez, as he's got to get things going. Boozy out there as well. Vasiliev will be one of the last over the line to try and put things together. So with that in mind, Guadarrama will be the last driver over the line, just getting over the line with about a second to spare. Brumby will not improve, missed the cut, stays in 12th. Ilbrink, of course, will go down into the pits. He thought he had enough time. He did not. Christophe Chiard then will look to improve on 8th place. And what a debut this would be if he could out-qualify Paul Ilbrink on debut. Chiard making a run to the line, can't improve, decides to pull it off. Rogan Buckley to improve on a 21.2 out there today, and does not. That was a 25.7 real struggle over the course of that lap. But now Dave Guild will be next over the line. Has he got improvement in abundance here as he makes his way through Jochen Rindt? Very committed corner. Then the final corner, very tough to get a run out of here. Of course, at Red Bull Mobile and over to the line, Dave Guild slows it down. It's not going to improve on that, nor can Alvarez, nor can Ponic. So it's down to just Guadarrama then to find that shade of improvement. Is down there in 10th position, only needs about 100th of a second to jump Leonardo Fabian and to move up into 9th position. Such is how fine the margins are in the late pack of this field. Guadarrama making his run into the pits will not be able to improve on that one. And it looks like Vasiliev as well had a moment out there on his lap, still going to go round regardless, trying to get himself over to the line with a little bit of practice then in the books, and that is done there. So let's get qualifying up on screen. So it is Dave Guild who is on pole position then with a 1:16.825. It's joined on the front row by Javier Alvarez on a 1:16.916. Pavel Vasiliev lines up third then with his teammate then making an all-atomic second row of Christoph Buzi there in fourth, with Mark Ponick fifth and Jeff Browning then in sixth position. Paul Ilbrink will start this one in seventh with Christoph Siard in eighth place, with Leonardo Fabian and Esteban Guadarrama there ninth and 10th. I am Keeman 11th, Nathan Brumby 12th, and it's Marcellus Bruning and Alexander Rogenbach who make the 14 that take to the grid. Frank, there's been a little bit of argy-bargy. Christoph Buzi not happy about the conditions, a little bit colder than what it was in officials. So effectively, he's looking at it like, I'm not prepared for this.
And going to have to work on that. You can make a little tiny setup tweaks here before you get on the grid to try to help, but you also have to make sure you don't set yourself out completely when the track does start to get a little bit warmer. So you do have to, it's a fine line. And if you do make a setup adjustment, you probably should best be sure that it's something you can make when you get back in the pit, when you get in your car.
Exactly. And the last thing you want to do with any setup adjustments is not work out what you've done or change on the fly without any understanding, because that can make the car potentially undrivable without prior notice of it. Just waiting for a couple of drivers then get onto the grid. I am Keeman is the last one we wait for. Drivers all looking to try and make sure that they have to obey the blue flags. They can only make one change of line as they go around. So a lot of work to be done as they try and make sure that they battle. Onto the grid comes I am Keeman. All 14 drivers ready. We're going to get the lights procedure starting then. It's 45 laps at the Red Bull Ring here for the first time with the eFormula Series. Lights on, lights out, we're underway. It's not the best start in the world from Alvarez, because look at the jump that Vasiliev has got. He'll challenge for the race lead into turn number one, and Buzi's lost it under braking into one. Big incident with the Jeff Browning, and he collects Guadarrama in the mix, I believe, as well. So no, it's Leonardo Fabian, sorry. So a big incident then off the start, but Vasiliev has got exactly what he wants. The lead only as far as Ramus corner, though. Back down the inside will come Dave Guild. He retakes the lead.
Oh!
And that's contact.
That's contact. That's big for Dave Guild. Vasiliev just trying to run off the corner. Christoph, boy, there's a mess of things going on here. Christoph Siard also had a problem. Guild is stuck on Rogenbach's car, or was.
Yep, and on top of that, Ilbrink had to be slow as well through that section. Yep. There was more contact going through from the likes, of course, of Christoph Buzi, who got caught up in the secondary incident as well. A nightmare starting competition, but for Vasiliev, this is all the Christmases come at once. The only issue he's got right now, here does Pavel Vasiliev, he's got Javier Alvarez for a little bit of company. New track, big drama.
He's got front wing damage as well on that number 11 from that contact with Guild, and that's certainly going to be affecting him around these quick and tight corners. But look who's battling up here for second now. Mark Ponick there. Look at Keeman making a big move, trying to get into P3.
I am Keeman, started 11th position on the grid, is now on the podium places after a lap, gets through, wide goes Alvarez. There may be a slowdown penalty there for going that wide, and just like this, I am Keeman now has a chance to attack this one and move up the position and gain the place. Is this going to be a move done on the outside here into Ramus at turn 2? Well, that's some great fighting on that inside then from Javier Alvarez, but he's got no drive on the exit and through breezing by with a little bit of help then, I believe, of that push to pass is I am Keeman now up into second. In the pits, Guild, Rogenbach, Fabian, Boozy, all there hoping that there is no suspension damage to speak of.
There's a little bit of front wing damage on IM Keeman. Fabian, Guild, Rogenbuck, Boozy, all in pit road. As we'll go and take a look back and see what happened. This is going through turn number 1 here at the start of this race. You're looking at the second atomic car. So you get into, nope, just too much brake. The back end kicks out. There's an incident there with Jeff Browning, Leonardo Fabian in there as well. So right on board, this is with Fabian. When Browning got spun out, Ilbrink had to really slow down. You see Ilbrink slipping past there, and then, of course, the incident with Dave Guild not that far after, as we see that on replay now.
We've got a battle for the lead. IM Keeman has just gone down the inside and has taken it away from Pavel Vasiliev. He started 11th. Within 3 laps, he's leading the whole thing. Brilliant work from IM Keeman off of the get-go. There has been some other changes of position. Ilbrink has got through on Jeff Browning. That was the 7th position on the road at the time. And fighting as well for a top 5, Esteban Guadarrama versus Marcellus Bruning. 2 drivers who started 10th or lower, now fighting for 1 top 5 place.
And we'll take a look at the pass for the race lead here. Just getting that draft going up into turn 2. Big, heavy braking zone, and just at 75 with a little less wing damage than the 11 is able to get up into the lead of this race.
You can tell that front wing is not helping Pavel Vasiliev as he really struggles through the corner. He's in fact coming into the pits as he goes in. So Ponick then going through. Now this is interesting for Vasiliev. This will condemn him to a 2-stop strategy, and he's been really liberal with the yellow marker code down at the very end. So Vasiliev here going for a new front wing. This is huge because Vasiliev now has got to work incredibly hard in this race to get himself back into any form of high point scoring position to capitalize.
But the good thing about that is, though, that Dave Guild is also sitting on pit road. Guild has not moved from the start of this race, so Dave Guild is also not in it, so that would really help. It's still not a good day at all for Vasiliev, but the fact that Guild has run into trouble also is certainly going to be a little bit of a consolation as Alvarez really put the charge on Keeman now.
Yeah, really putting that charge, and we are starting to see just how tough this is. And I am really surprised to see that Vasiliev got front wing damage, or maybe a bit more, because he's been in the pits for an incredibly long time. He looked really, really strong going over this circuit here, especially off of the get-go, off of the start. So it really did look like, for all intents and purposes, that it was a start that he was very, very good with. And that contact for Vasiliev, of course, which he managed to pick up, was, of course, over at turn 2. Out there when he tried to go through, the spin came along, and it was the hit from Dave Guild. You talk about moments that define championships right now. This might just be the one card that they need. Finally out and away is Pavel Vasiliev, but look at how much time he's lost in comparison. That is IM Keeman just behind him. He's lost an entire lap's worth of time.
And pulls over and stops and goes into the pits and toes to the pits as Alvarez goes for the race lead on Keeman.
So Pavel Vasiliev has pulled it over, has retired the car. He is out of the race. He will not score. So it looks like a 0-0 between himself and Dave Guild. As on the brakes, it's Alvarez down the inside. And he does just enough to get through on Keeman. What a moment this is for Javier Alvarez. He looked like a complete outsider for the championship. Now he is right back in the mix again.
Yep, he's going to be absolutely with this, a potential win on the cards for him, especially with Paul Ilbrink being mired down in the 5th position. However, Ilbrink setting fastest laps of the race. He ran a 118.29. The only other driver in the 118s tonight, Mark Ponick, who's sitting in 3rd.
Now, the reason why he's in 5th is because Marcellus Bruning spun the car coming out to Slushgold. There was contact between himself and Esteban Guadarrama on the exit of the corner. Bruning put a big block pass in. Guadarrama tried to put the power down and had nowhere to go.
No, absolutely not. And that's what we're talking about with big runs coming out of these corners and being sure you are good on exit. As we'll take a look, we'll go back and finish this replay of what happened with Dave Guild through turn number 1. You're going to see through turn 2, pardon me. You're going to see him complete the pass and then just too hard on throttle coming out of it. Siard goes around, and then that kind of bumps him into Christoph Boozy, who then gets run over. Ilbrink had to stop completely, and so did a couple of other guys. Just a horrendous break for the points leader, the newly minted points leader.
Newly minted indeed, but he will still, as things stand, if my maths is correct around here, maintain the championship lead despite 0 points because of Vasiliev's retirement. On top of that, heading to the next round at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So there are opportunities on the horizon, but now I Am Keenan's got to look behind in second place because Mark Ponick is very much up upon this one, wanting to get some points, as it's the Privateers Championship that really takes center stage here in the racing today. Remember that these two, 1 and 2, 15 points between them. Mark Ponick would like to chip off a little bit here on car 75.
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a great night for Ponick. We haven't seen him battling for podium positions all that much. He's been kind of looming around the top 5. So a very good night for Ponick coming up. So it's, as long as there's no mistakes, like I said, he's the only other driver that has managed to hit a 1:18 second lap. And going back to the championships that are in focus, that kills with what happened with Guild, Vasiliev, and Boozy, that kills not just the overall championship, but the team championship as well. All 3 of the cars we were focusing on at the top, all out.
All out, which means that once again, Tulip Racing have control there. But we also haven't talked about how this helps the Radicals team out in that. Remember, Paul Ilbrink is only scoring solo points. He has a chance to close down that gap. Not enough to take the lead in that championship, but to make it close. He's riding around in 5th place at the moment. He's made a couple of mistakes out there on circuit, but he is piloting pretty close to Esteban Guadarrama at this stage.
Yeah, he is absolutely flying still as Alvarez puts in his fastest lap of the race. The third driver now to get inside the 1:18 second bracket. Ilbrink.
Look at this from Mark Ponick. He got a great run out of 1. Keeman had to keep it within the lines. Easy as you like. Up into second goes Mark Ponick.
Might be that front wing damage affecting Keeman just a little bit, but Ponick does have the overall pace. He's been quicker than Keeman so much of this race. We'll take a look at the lap times. Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty obvious. Ponick has the pace here tonight.
Yeah, Mark Ponick looks really, really quick, and I Am Keeman, after a good burst early on, I think it was just the case of he got himself a little bit out of shape through the very tough turn 1 at Niki Lauda curve, that it all just fell away and wasn't quite an available opportunity. Has also been a pass a little bit further down the order. Jeff Browning over that last lap, dropping the place to Christophe Siard then for position. That one being done after a wide run through turn number 1. A slowdown penalty on top of that. And a comfortable overtake then by Siard jumps him up into P number 6. In this one, just the 11 runners out there on circuit right now. Brumby and Rogenbach are a lap down. Out of the race, Boozy, Guild, Vasiliev, who we're all keeping an eye out on for 2 of the 3 championships which are on the line today.
Yep, and as you were saying that, we just saw on screen Paul Ilbrink getting around Esteban Guadarrama. That for the 4th position, as Ponick still trying to run away from I Am Keeman, the 2 closest battles on the racetrack right now, for 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th.
Yep, so 2nd and 3rd, 4th and 5th, the close ones at the moment. Alvarez out to 1.8 seconds of a margin here in this race, and is really proving right now that there is a wealth of experience that comes from him. It was a very crazy start. Cold conditions, cold tyres, always going to be a very tough order to get things going. But once you settle in, you get 2-3 laps under the belt. Tyres get themselves up to temperature, and you then get that ability to attack the track, and that's what Alvarez does best. He just stays patient. He knows when to attack the track, and you don't often get that level of experience in a series like this.
No, absolutely not, and you don't get this level of consistency either all that often in cars that, if you do push over the limit, they will bite you back. And just on tracks like these that can be so technically demanding, Alvarez has shown times and flashes this year of inconsistency, but he had a fantastic race at Phillip Island. This is shaping up to be a race that it's going to be kind of hard for him to lose.
And let's also not forget here, Frank, that there is the one, I believe it's the 2 drop rounds in this championship.
I think one.
But so that would mean then that both Dave Guild and the likes of Pavel Vasiliev, this is their drop round.
Yeah, absolutely could be. And this is certainly, it's such a strategic play, and they don't use the drop rounds, as we found out last year. They don't use the drop rounds until coming into the final race of the season. So the point standings now, or the point standings going into that final race from Motegi, might not look exactly the same as they do going into Coda at the end of the season.
I would also say, though, that pretty much every driver who's fighting for the championship has had at least one non-finish here in this one. So I think it's going to be a straight point shootout when it comes to this championship all the way towards the end. So just keep that in mind as this all continues on forward. Ponick has had a really good turn of pace. I Am Keeman's had a really poor lap, actually, this time by a 123.7. Just having a look at where it's gone wrong. It's a spin at Schlossgirl Corner, which has caught out I Am Keeman. And also, it's worth noting that Paul Ilbrink here has also had a moment, same corner actually, and that allowed Guadarrama to go back through, but Ilbrink has just got that pass back once again.
Yeah, we just saw the replay of what happened to Paul Ilbrink there to lose that position. Unfortunately, we didn't get an update on what happened with Keeman there, but it's suffice it to say he's 5 seconds off of Mark Ponick now.
Yeah, it was a spin in the end for I Am Keeman. It was about 10 seconds before the issue that befell one Mr. Paul Ilbrink. So a 360 for I Am Keeman. No scopes on these cars, of course, but still having to do a lot of work to get back into position. But I tell you what that Ilbrink spin has done, though, or that Ilbrink mistake, is bringing in Christophe Siard here in 6th place.
Yeah, it has. And Guadarrama also was not that far off. He was trying to fight for that position back going into turn 3, just as we saw on screen. So Guadarrama not done.
Nope, not done at all. So Esteban feeling like there is a real opportunity here with Paul Ilbrink just in front. No damage on the car of Paul Ilbrink, but maybe just struggling with these conditions, and especially with this circuit. We've been talking about it a little bit. Track limits are difficult in some respects around here. It's very easy to try and overextend around this track. So I'm sure that those drivers will be keeping an eye out on it, because this is one of the toughest series. We've said it many times before here with ESPN. One of the toughest leagues in the world of iRacing to finish correctly. 10 incident points means a drive-through. That is not much leeway.
No, absolutely not. You have to be inch perfect. You look for driver skill, and you have a lot of it here. You mentioned the former Black Bumper Brigade for Paul Ilbrink. Javier Alvarez also way up there as far as iRating goes. So there's a lot of skill in this series. You may not see the biggest fields in this series, but that's because not a lot of people, including myself, can drive the way these guys do.
Absolutely. That's something that we have seen. We go on to the 13th lap then of this 45-lap event, and that will be 1/3 distance in the next couple of laps then. And you would also argue at the same time the opening of the pit stop window, which of course will be very, very wide here today, trying to make sure that all the results come into play. So drivers will be looking maybe around lap 30 as the ideal place to come down in and make their stops. Meanwhile, Christophe Siard has found the back of Guadarrama is within a second.
Yep, Siard having a very good debut. Had that spin coming up to the top of the hill here on lap 1, but other than that, Siard has been absolutely fantastic here tonight. Put on a very good lap time in practice. Pardon me, could not quite replicate that in the qualifying session, but Siard's still doing a very, very good job. I would not be surprised if he turns into a thorn in Paul Ilbrink's side this entire night.
Well, he's got to get past Guadarrama first before he can actually think about Paul Ilbrink up there in 4th place. And Ilbrink could very much do with the points right now, just quietly running in 4th. Not something that we'd traditionally expect to see from Paul Ilbrink. He's the sort of driver who, for the first 2 seasons, was inseparable with the front of the field. But it seems like this 3rd season, this build that has come through has really not been where Paul Ilbrink has wanted it. And almost you would say a lack of confidence maybe with the car, the fact that he has been very up and down with results this season.
And it goes all the way back to the very end of last season. We saw what happened at Zandvoort, the season finale for season 2, and that's really what kind of set this whole inconsistency trend off. You're right. He was pretty much connected at the hip to the podium and to the podium positions. And really, since Zandvoort at the end of last season, it's been a roller coaster. It's been up and down. And you're right, it could be partially due to the builds. It could be the competition has changed here in this series. So it's a multitude of different things. Does have 2 wins this year, but it's, like we said, that up and down season that he has had this year.
Yes, and that's what we'll be keeping in mind as drivers all try and score and get as many points as they possibly can on the books. Leonardo Fabian still out there racing, is down there in 9th position. Jeff Browning and Marcellus Bruning also starting to close on those gaps at this point in time, as is, in fact, the battle for 10th position as well. It's about 1 straight between Alexander Rogenbach and Nathan Brumby. That should light up a little bit later on, because Nathan Brumby, just checking out his race laps, he's been doing 1:21s around here. Alexander Rogenbach, his best time has been a 1:20.8, but he just did the 22.4. So looks like those two very similar in terms of times, as Guadarrama, who's really full of mirrors now for Christophe Siard.
Yeah, Siard definitely working his way up, and that's a mistake caused by Siard being as close as he was. Guadarrama just ran his fastest lap of the race that last time around, but unfortunately it's all gone for naught, as Siard, the faster car, has taken advantage of that mistake.
I'll tell you what does strike me around this circuit as very, very interesting is really just how narrow some of the places on this circuit is and how much it just widens and shrinks from corner to corner and place to place. It feels very much old school. It's not one of these brand new tracks where everything is an exact set length and it's almost like it's built to be a clean cut place. There's a ruggedness around this track. There is a rough edge, like a rough diamond. And what you definitely say about this track here, really, Frank, is that a lot of new tracks, they don't get built like this. They don't get built with varying straight lengths or varying widths of the circuit, and it really does show that this is a tough track to go and master, especially through every stage. In fact, Nathan Brumby's just had a moment on track, and he has retired the car with that moment, brought the car down into the pits on his own, said, I'm not going to catch anyone, I'm not going to score.
Yeah, Paul Ilbrink has also brought it down pit lane as well in the number 16 for Radicals, so that's a surprising pit stop a little bit early. You know what? He hit an incident limit. That's a drive-through for Ilbrink.
10 instant points in 16 laps is really scary for Paul Ilbrink, because you also have to remember
he just hit the pit wall.
He's only got 10 left and he gets disqualified.
He just hit the pit wall on pit exit 2. Now, granted, he has had a couple of spins. He had that off track at the very beginning, so there's that. He had to stop on racetrack coming through this corner on the same lap. So it's been a combination of stuff for Ilbrink. Loss of car control down at turn 3. It's not been fun for Paul Ilbrink here early on, and that drive-through is going to be a slap in the face.
And I tell you what, when he hit the wall on the exit, he'd have to have been careful that he didn't collect 2 more instant points for that hit, or even more than that. So that can be very, very awkward when you do hit a wall around this place. Very difficult to do. Normally it's race ending, but on that pit exit, it's something that often gets overlooked, how difficult this pit lane is. It's a very fast entry through a single track lane to a very late yellow cone marker, and you then go up the hill into what is a very tough exit. So always very difficult to go and get correct, always difficult to try and get the right result. And it's worth noting as well that Marcellus Bruning is now through on Jeff Browning, so So that is a change for 6th and 7th positions right now in this race. So more changes coming in. But that pit exit is uncharacteristically difficult around this place.
Yeah, and we'll see it later on when guys like Alvarez and Panik and Keeman start coming into pit road for their stops. It's very tight. It's very narrow. You have walls on either side. It's a lot like the 24-hour, the endurance pit going through the first hairpin at Spa, the first corner there. It's very, very tight, very, very narrow, but you have to get out of it quick because that bleeds out onto a very long straightaway. So you push the limits through that pit exit, and it does become a lot tighter than it actually is. It's about 2 car lengths wide, 2 car widths wide. Pardon me. You can make it seem a lot shorter than that with how fast you have to get out of it.
I certainly agree with you around this place. It is a very tough section. Gap at the front, by the way. Javier Alvarez leading for Positive Sim Racing. Leads by 3.2 seconds out there here in this one over Mark Ponick in second. And I Am Keeman back 11 seconds in this field in third place overall. It's a race of resilience, you would say, at this stage, with 4 retirements from this one and a potential that more could be in the offing if things don't go well with the incident points. So just keep that in mind as this one goes forward. So work to be done. Javier Alvarez, just the coolest customer at the moment, just slowly managing that gap, eking it out, 10th by 10th up to 3.2 seconds, giving himself room and options for when he can come down and make that pit stop.
Yeah, but just set the fastest, his fastest lap of the race at an 18.39 that last time around. And you can see how wide he's getting coming out of that final corner. It's really, once you start getting onto the Austrian flag and the red there, that's when you start picking up incident points. So you can really sit on the green, the green paint through the outside of those final couple of corners. So he's pushing the limits. He's doing fine. Also, speaking of guys that are in the 1:18s, I Am Keeman just put in his first lap in the 1 minute 18 second bracket. Christophe Siard also 1:18.99, so he's really starting to move up this field as well.
Yeah, they are just starting to burn off that fuel, and that's going to mean that they are going quicker and quicker with those lap times, but it's not necessarily easy at this moment, especially in the middle of the field, because you've got Guadarrama looking pretty close. He's just got a little bit too deep into Ramos' corner. Just about gets away with that one there. Running as well. Everyone's struggling here to slow it up into turn number 2. There's not really any wind that's making life more difficult, but as drivers try and push the limit, turn 2 is one where you can very easily just sail on in deep, because it's such a late braking apex into that section, as in fact Marcellus Bruning has just thrown it off the road then at Schlussgeld corner, and that allows Jeff Browning through. It is very easy to lose the grip out of these tyres, despite this being a high-speed circuit. It's those right-hand side tyres that you need to worry about. The only 2 left-handers on this circuit are very high-low.
Yeah, exactly. We'll ride this lap with Javier Alvarez. Right now you see uphill T1, coming again uphill turn 2. So this is, you're getting used to, you're getting conditioned to being able to brake a little bit later because gravity is working with you by going uphill. And now all of a sudden that all completely changes, as now you have to go back downhill, another heavy braking zone, just as heavy as turns 1 and 2. You have to get this right, otherwise you're going to go right off into the gravel. And then here, coming up through now the middle sector of this racetrack, it's a blind left going downhill, the track falling away from you. So just the first couple of major corners here at this racetrack are very, very difficult, and all of them are very unique. Uphill 90 degrees, uphill hairpin, downhill 90 degrees, downhill blind sweeper. It's not a Herman Tilke track, we'll put it that way.
No, certainly not. Let's talk about some of the history of this circuit as well here. Frank was, for the majority of the early 2000s, abandoned since 2003. Yep. It was only when Red Bull came into play in 2011 that they bought this track back and decided to return it to its former glory. And for about 8 years, this place was completely unusable. And I would say what a great shame it was that we couldn't use this place for a number of years.
Yeah, but it was the A1 ring back then as well. And one of the more controversial finishes in Formula One history. As I believe we just saw, I believe that was Jeff Browning dive down into pit road with Michael Schumacher being allowed to, Rubens Barrichello being told to allow Michael Schumacher to pass to take the win. That was one of the very last races here at this racetrack. We've seen nothing but classic races since Red Bull came back and took it over. As I think Browning also the victim of an incident limit here, as he does a pass through as well.
Yep, so Jeff Browning takes the complete drive-through penalty through the lane. That will be for hitting the limit of 10 instant points. And as we said, very difficult here today. And we're seeing drivers before the halfway stages of this race finding themselves in every single bit of trouble with that instant point. And that's something that really does irk you as you drive through. If you hit an instant point early, you're then telling yourself you've got to be narrow and you've got to be straight, and you put even more psychological pressure on yourself to keep yourself through on the racing lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really, you talk about this track narrowing up. That narrows the racetrack up even more for you if you have to worry about that incident limit, especially if you get it so early in the race. So that just makes an already difficult race even more difficult, having to be picture perfect and not pushing as hard as you want.
Yeah, and it's all about pushing the limits around this place, and you can see just how much the limits have been pushed compared to the main pack, which sits at around 30 to 40 seconds, around 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place. That is how much Javier Alvarez has of a margin and has been able to just keep it nice and calm. And Javier Alvarez, as a team, Positive Sim Racing, they've been a team up there in the highest levels of professional sim racing out there around the world. You could argue exactly the same, of course, for the Radicals Online team, but a team which, has that heritage, has that history in open wheel, and not only that, has designated drivers for designated areas. Of course, they have a big Skip Barber program. They've got a lot of work that goes through all the way up through Formula One in terms of McLaren MP430s. And then, of course, with a lot of GT and Porsche efforts now being focused on for the iRacing Championships, that's another thing that's being thought of right now by the Positive team. And they are having to dip their fingers in and make sure they've got everything all nicely sorted, especially with Alvarez, the team boss, showing everyone how it's done today here in eFormula.
Be interested to see if they would jump into the major series, which I believe is next week at Crandon. It's really fun to watch and to see all of these guys for Positive Sim Racing that specialize in all of these different series. And we heard at the end of last year, Lubomir Moric, who won the championship here last year, thinking about making that move up to Formula One next year for the series, taking a year off from sim racing. Be interested to see if they would be willing to throw a guy in a league like the Majors Series where they run different cars at different style tracks every single time they go racing, just to kind of see the all-around capability of some of the drivers, even though a lot of them, as you mentioned, are very much in their specialized series.
Yeah, battle going on as well, though. Here's Paul Ilbrink on the back of Marcellus Brunning. I'm pretty sure that Mark won't make this the most difficult in the world, but not going to get the run just yet through that very tough left-hander there of Ralph Corner. And these two left-handers are nightmares out there when you drive for the dirty air effect around this place.
Yeah, but I believe that's also where, if I remember that video he sent right, I believe that's where Danny Hoekstra is going to be sitting for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so he'll see that in full effect. And you're right, you're already running such low aero downforce on these cars because of the straight line speed that any downforce that's taken off of these cars really affects you. And you're right, that is a very difficult place to get hit with some downforce loss.
Meanwhile, Esteban Guadarrama is just in front of these two and is being reeled back in with the pace that is being seen at this moment in time. So it's looking pretty awkward right now for Paul Ilbrink. He'll have two cars to get through. He'll have to search around the outside here. Brunning pretty much parking it in the middle of the road there, trying to get through. Ilbrink very much didn't know which way he was supposed to go, and all of a sudden, he's off the blower, and he is now finding himself still stuck behind, and it's a bit more time lost. And the last thing he wants to do is run up the back of someone else, but Marcellus Brunning very kindly misses his braking point.
Yeah, that was helpful for Brink, without a doubt. Now he's going to try to move himself up into the 5th position, getting around Guadarrama again. Remember, the last time he got past Guadarrama, he had to go into the pits for a drive-through. So certainly...
Yeah, that's certainly not ideal for Paul Brink, and he'll be hoping that he doesn't go into that same sort of area again. But he looks very calm now. It's almost like he's had that slap on the wrist, so to speak, and he's just got to go out there, be aggressive, get that position back. This is another thing that you have to remember about this place. It is very draft central, which means if you make a move, it's never a guarantee around this place to make it stick, and that's what Paul Ilbrink's trying to do. Gets a great run here through turn 1. He's got to make it stick here on the run to Ramus at turn 2.
Yeah, this is not going to be a battle going into the braking zone. Ilbrink is going to have this one long done by the time they get up into this corner, and absolutely right, about a second already between the two going into that that Remus corner. So Ilbrink now will set his sights on closing the 9.5-second gap up to Christophe Siard.
But we are now starting to get even closer to official pit stop windows at this stage. So one position has already been scored as a pass, but keep in mind that we are not necessarily in guarantees. Alexander Rogenbach has come down in to make his stop then out on circuit. So he now drops to 2 laps down at this moment in time. And you'd say at this point that if you are in a strong battle, if you are in a position where you can really go out there, make that stop and just get yourself out and away again, now's the time. Alvarez has pulled that gap out the front to 5 seconds here to Mark Ponick. And I have to say, Mark Ponick has driven an absolutely fantastic race in second position. Has been keeping honest the entirety of this race. As into the pits comes both Christophe Siard and Marcellus Brunning.
Yep, so Siard, the first of the pitters here, trying to get that undercut on I.M. Keeman, trying to get him. He's not going to pass him, but it'll certainly bring him a lot closer. As there goes Siard down and away. Mark Brunning now in pit road. We saw Jeff Browning, his Tulip Racing USA teammate, have a spin coming out of Remus. And Browning now in with front wing damage on that John Deere number 63.
Yeah, doesn't look the prettiest, I would say, for Jeff Browning, who has been struggling around over this lap. So had his moment, just getting a little bit too lit up, smashing into the Armco barriers there on the inside. And of course, remember, Jeff Browning's over that 10-point limit, has already had a drive-through penalty. The issue you would say right now for Jeff is that not only does he have to change the front wing, but will also now be on even less instant points to go and play with after that hit into the wall.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we have seen a completely different race tonight from what we were expecting. We saw Vasiliev and Guild. We were expecting a battle with them. Paul Ilbrink expecting a battle with him up there as well. Vasiliev, Boozy, and Guild out within the first 3 laps of the race. Ilbrink in trouble early after a bad qualifying, just set a 1:17.97, fastest lap of the race for him. Then he's running into instant point trouble. A lot of other people pushing that instant point limit as well. It's been a completely different race as Ilbrink around, coming off of the curbing.
No. And again, Paul Ilbrink struggling out here. Again, it's the exit of 2. We talk about this. A lot of iRacers struggle with this aspect of racing, which is putting the power down up the hill out of a corner. You need to be delicate through there. And he just got the left-hand side tyres over that rumble strip there on the left-hand side. A little bit of the anti-cut curb as well. And that's always a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's certainly... If I were him, and I say this sarcastically, if I were him, I'd stop passing Esteban Guadarrama, because within 2 laps of him passing him twice now, he's had a pit lane a drive-through, and now he's spun it. Just stay behind Esteban. Just bite the bullet on that one.
Meanwhile, Esteban Guadarrama comes down into the pits, as did Leonardo Fabian. So they're clearly on the same strategy call, and very early on the line is Guadarrama. So early, I think he was expecting the line to be a good 300 meters back from where it actually was.
Yeah, and that's again. This should not come as a new racetrack to these drivers. If these guys have played the F1 games, or even I believe Forza Motorsport has had this track in their sims for quite a while, this should not come really as a new track that these guys absolutely have to get used to. As we'll take a look, we're riding on board with Guadarrama right now. This is that pit exit that we were talking about. Look at how narrow that is up the hill. You're trying to push as hard as you possibly can, and then you get this 90-degree corner with Armco around either side, and you're out into this long straightaway. That's what makes this pit road so difficult to get off of.
And not only that, but comes out just behind the race leader, Javier Alvarez. So more dramas then on the horizon going on through with Alvarez then just having to be a little bit wary of drivers behind potentially in this one. Christophe Siard, of course, made that stop, comfortably got out and away, and I have to note as well just how long of a stop it was for Guadarrama, because he is a long way now behind Christophe Siard, and remember, they weren't too far away from each other a number of laps ago.
No, they were not. It was a 9.3 second stop for Guadarrama, at 8.8 seconds for Siard. But again, Siard coming in 2 laps sooner, that really helped with that undercut, really run away with a couple of laps on fresh tires, plus now Guadarrama on cold tires. That's really going to help push Siard out in front.
Back in
again.
again.
Yep, Guadarrama coming in again.
Yep, so that will be instant point limit number 10 for Guadarrama. Race leader then, Javier Alvarez dives in. And look at Mark Ponick then, just behind Guadarrama. So that will be Ponick's pit stop. Keeman as well. They could only go 29 laps then on the fuel, because of course you have to remember as well here, Frank, and we somehow haven't said this, you're spending 75% of the time on the throttle around this place. What does that mean? Well, it means one thing very good. You're using a lot of fuel.
Yep, which means longer pit stops for fuel as we see Guadarrama go through. Ponick gets
jumped
out in front of Alvarez.
Now, I want to see Alvarez here on the line. Has Alvarez gone a bit too quickly into his box, or was it unsafe as he went in because he got in outside the lines trying to dive down into the pits? Will it be classified as an unsafe pit entry? It is. It's an unsafe pit entry that has caught Javier Alvarez, the race leader, out.
And we'll take a look at this right now here while Alvarez sits in his box. Boy, really wiggly coming down that, and we'll get a better view of it here. He was very wiggly coming down that hill. It's Ponick. My goodness. The world is happening to me. There is... It might have been him crossing the line on the racetrack, so that would have been before the replay, unfortunately. Yeah, you're right. It's probably the way he crossed into that access road going into pit road, and that's dropped him behind Christophe Siard by about 6 seconds.
It has, and that will really hurt in terms of this race, and I'm sure everyone's going to be very alert to what they can do. Paul Ilbrink's had another little moment out there on track, back end stepping out, drifts it through Ramos corner. So there's clearly a lot going on. Alvarez is out just ahead, actually, of Paul Ilbrink at this stage. But Mark Ponick leads here at the Red Bull Ring. It is now second IM Keeman. And if you look back, it will be Christophe Siard who will be in third position when everything is said and done. So Paul Ilbrink then, having made his mandatory stop, finds himself right with Alvarez, and they'll be fighting hard against, trying to chase down Siard, to make sure that they get at least a podium to capitalise and bring the points back.
They needed just through those last corners. You see how hard Alvarez is pushing to try to make up for that mistake and get back on the podium, get around Christophe Siard. You're seeing on screen right now the time in pit lane, in their pit boxes, I should say, 6.7 seconds for Ponick. He's got a 13.5 second lead over IM Keeman. Keeman spent 11.8 seconds in his pit box, so it wasn't just a bad stop for Alvarez, it was horrible for IM Keeman as well.
But you have to remember, IM Keeman has probably given up all hope of a race victory. He's hoping that Ponick hits 10 incident points. So for IM Keeman, it's a case of just keep it on the road and don't make any mistakes, and it might just be second position, and an important second as well. There's only one race in my eFormula time covering this series that can even compare to just how topsy-turvy it's been. And it was another race where Paul Ilbrink fell into a lot of troubles, and it was Long Beach.
Yeah, that as well. And Keeman actually won that race. And thinking back to it, I think it might have been front wing repair for I.M. Keeman as well. He had front wing damage from that incident on turn one, on lap one, and never came in to get that repaired. So that might have been what slowed his pit stop down. But I can certainly think of another one that might have been a little bit more topsy-turvy than this. Go back to Imola last season. We actually had to cut the race short because it got too dark.
That is also very true. Drivers trying to work out in the dark where they needed to go. So that all sorted itself out. Worth keeping stock then of where everyone is. Mark Ponick leads 14 seconds over I.M. Keeman, who is 17 seconds clear of Christophe Siard. On debut, remember, in third position. It is Alvarez in fourth. It is Ilbrink in fifth. And Marcellus Bruning in sixth position. Guadarrama has just been lapped in seventh with Jeff Browning in eighth. Then it's Leonardo Fabian ninth. The last runner at this moment is Alexander Rogenbach, 2 laps down in 10th place. So some work then still left to be done in the final 13 laps. It will soon be the final 12 laps now of this race. But do not count out Paul Ilbrink versus Javier Alvarez.
Now we're riding on board with Ilbrink right now, and you could tell how hard Ilbrink is pushing to get back up to Alvarez. And you can also tell how hard Alvarez is pushing to try to get away from Ilbrink, as these guys are just throwing it through these corners, pushing the limits as hard as they possibly can push them. And we've seen, at least Ilbrink knows how far you can push them before you get penalized.
I'll tell you what, I am worried for Javier Alvarez here. 2 laps in a row haven't been stacked up or chalked up on the board, which would be an indication that there is a penalty flag somewhere in full play. So I think Alvarez might just have to dive down into the pits at some point to serve a penalty.
Yep, that looks like possibly. Let's take a look, just in an effort to kind of eliminate some things. Let's take a look at his pit exit, see if it was an unsafe pit exit by jumping out before the cone. Possibly. He's coming up the hill now, and you have to stay on that blue line. You cannot merge out. You have to stay in. So it wasn't a blue cone violation. It might be an incident point violation for him.
Very much might be, so keep this in mind as Alvarez goes forward. It might just be that the iRacing system getting a little bit mixed muddled up here with a couple of things here and there. We'll go out again, see if this lap counts, and if it does, then it's just the system not liking Javier Alvarez at this stage. It's always, of course, a concern. This time it does count an 18.3, so it looks like he's been struggling a little bit out of the last couple of corners, and that's why he's been closed down in. But all of a sudden, closing in, Ilbrink's within half a second here as they bring the gap down to 3.3 to Siard. They're taking 1.5 seconds out of Siard, but Ilbrink's taking time out of Alvarez.
Yeah, Ilbrink has been the quickest of the three. Ilbrink at an 18.03 that last time by. Alvarez close to resetting his personal best at a 1:18.38. Compare that to Christophe Siard, who just ran a 19.84 last time around. So Siard very much just strolling at the moment as he actually comes out wide off of turn 3 there.
And a little wiggle from Alvarez brings Ilbrink ever closer. Ilbrink can't afford to hurt himself here in this one. He's got to be clean with the way that he makes this move. And charging again off of the exit here on lap 34. And now through the left of Verth corner. It was Ralph the corner just before that. There's the run to Jochen Rindt that's going to be the very, very telling one. Another corner which is full of that dirty air effect through the long right. You can see just how much understeer Ilbrink gets. And remember, when you get copious amounts of understeer, this is a tough track to defend on. Ilbrink on the front stretch, and look how telling it is how much coverage there was from Javier Alvarez. He was making sure that he's saved those points that he had, of course, with those push-to-passes in the race lead, and now trying to desperately hold on to fourth. Ilbrink's got to go to the outside here to get it done on the run down to Ramus corner, and as they reach the braking zone, will there be something left to fight for as they go through? Well, Ilbrink can't get it done.
Very nicely defended there by Alvarez. And if you're a fan of Jimmy Broadbent, you'll know the term that I'm going to use right now. Those last couple of quarters, that whole last sector, that was a lot of, it wasn't understeer. When you go beyond understeer and you hit chundersteer, that's exactly what Ilbrink got. And Ilbrink slides coming out of turn 3 after a little bit of contact with Alvarez.
And you know what? Alvarez let him have it. Alvarez let him have it. And I'll tell you what, that's some great sportsmanship from Javier Alvarez. Knew that he was a beaten driver on the outside. He didn't even make contact, I don't think, there. I think that was just a case of Ilbrink getting forced to the outside, gets a bit of gravel and slides around. That would have been 2 incident points to deal with for the loss of control. But just like that, Alvarez sportingly lets Paul Ilbrink have it because he's proven that he's able to get alongside. And now it's Ilbrink's initiative to chase down Christophe Siard.
Yeah, you're right. I think that was a little quick to take the blame there from Alvarez. He never touched him. Sure, he ran him out of road as now Alvarez takes another big off. Sure, he may have ran him a little bit out of road, but other than that, that was all clean and all good. That was just close, tight racing for Alvarez, unless he said, well, you're going to get me anyway. You may as well take it.
That might be something that comes into play, but of course we don't have that insight as of yet at this moment in time. But we are looking now to start lap 37 here of 45. Your race leader is Mark Ponick at this stage and leads by a very sizable margin here of over 16 seconds now over IM Keeman. I wonder if Keeman's had another moment over that last lap, which has dropped him back even further. So looks like for the moment he's just had to get through a bit of lap traffic, but it's all okay at the moment. But in fact, no, Keeman's in for a second time. He's just hit his instant point limit. Yeah,
that's got to be what it is. There's really no other reason why he would be coming in at this point, unless he hit that instant point limit. Might have re-damaged that right front wing. Yep, he's going through, and this will move Christophe Siard into the second position, and now Keeman might be in a position where he's losing a podium spot. Not quite yet, but Ilbrink certainly has the pace.
Yeah, the pace is very much there for Paul Ilbrink. Carrot on a stick, the podium is there. One position for Mark Ponick means that he gains even more points in that privateer standing, remember, up in that championship fight. Remember as well that Ilbrink does not have many points to play with at all. He's been sideways the majority of this race, and he's got to be very, very alert to what's going on. Now Mark Ponick has a gap very similar to what Max Verstappen had at the very end of the Styrian Grand Prix last week. He's got himself over half a minute's lead.
He's got himself 33 seconds right now to play with Christophe Siard heading through the last bit of the second sector, beginning the third sector right about now. But just behind them, Keeman and Ilbrink are going to be bearing down on him quickly. The thing that will help him out, one, is the amount of laps left. We're working on lap 38 of 45, and also these two battling each other certainly going to help out Siard on debut.
They certainly are going to help. Ilbrink absolutely charging at this point. He knows he's got to make that move, and he's got to make it quickly. He is the fastest driver out there on track as things stand. I'm just keeping an eye out here on drivers trying to get exactly what they want. Alvarez put a 78 down on the board, has simply recovered that time and is bringing it back into play. So on the brakes they go into Raymer's corner once again, and again it's a case of the waiting game being showcased in full effect with Paul Ilbrink here in fourth position, wanting to get through, but he's not there yet. He's just got to be patient. There will be opportunity.
And that was very touchy there for Ilbrink, because you saw him jump over that yellow curbing on the outside of Remus, and that's not only you playing with incident limit, but also right before Ilbrink came into pit road, we saw him spin out at that corner doing the same exact thing. So he's flirting with a couple of different ways of disaster there in that 16 at that corner, and another.
It's so easy to do, and you'll notice that Ilbrink will go very quickly from this serve up. If he does hit the points, they need to. He'd have got away with that one. With that slide, he wouldn't have been out of position, but then into the pits again comes IM Keeman. So Keeman in whole heaps of trouble at this point. And now what? Alvarez down the inside of Ilbrink once again. He'll get him into Niki Lauda, and that's a great move to regain the podium. Alvarez with that second wind, making that way through. What on earth is going on with IM Keeman here today? And now Ilbrink's going to try and fight this one back on the outside. They go tire to tire here on the run up to Remus corner. And again, it is once more Javier Alvarez holding that place.
Unfortunately, having a little bit of an issue. iRacing seemed to have crashed on me. We're getting in right now. We're getting back in just a moment here.
So we'll go radio here at this point in time. Ian Keeman then has come into the pits from 5th position in this race with ESPN Radio at this point in time. Paul Ilbrink then in the Red Radicals online machine going through Rauch corner, the first of 2 left-handers trying to find himself a way through. Frank, let me know when you're back in. But now we got Ilbrink trying to stay with Javier Alvarez at the moment. It's a very conceited battle, you could say, at this point in time, because Javier Alvarez in the number 7 machine is still doing just enough. That gap, about 4 car lengths as they round the final corner, as they go on to lap 40 of 45. But Frank, you have to say, for today's race, it has been an incredible battle for a number of ways. It's been battles between drivers and battles with the track.
Yeah, it certainly has been. And like I said before, it's a completely different race from what we were expecting to see. A lot of fun, a lot of variation. And look at who's leading this race. It feels like one of the Italian Grand Prix from last season.
Absolutely. That one where it was Mark Ponick who, not Mark Ponick, it was Pierre Gasly who picked up the win. Mark Ponick would wish he picked up that win there in an AlphaTauri. But at least for the moment, Paul Ilbrink to Schlussgold at turn 3 again, gets close, but does just struggle a little bit there to get the car turned into the corner. And as such, it stays as is for the moment. But we are down to the final 5 laps with Mark Ponick commanding in front. And I tell you who has done really well over these final laps of this race. Christophe Siard in 2nd place, because what has Siard done over the course of this one? Siard has just kept it calm, kept it on the island. Everyone around Christophe Siard has gone into troubles except the 81.
And that goes back to what I was saying with Ilbrink and Keeman and Alvarez about to fight each other. That's only going to help Siard. If he could keep that car straight, if he can keep that car on the track, not hit the incident point limit, that will certainly help him keep that 2nd position.
Yeah, that 2nd position is so vital to Siard as a statement of what he can do. Started 8th place on the grid today, has moved it up then into position number 2. Ilbrink again getting closer and closer. There's double trouble in terms of in front. It's 3 seconds, mind you. They closed a 1.5 seconds that last lap on Siard. They got Leonardo Fabian to get by first and foremost. And with 6 drivers now left on the leading lap, and I am Keeman around now, coming out of turn number 1 with a big moment through Niki Lauda. He got on the outside curb, the car spun around, found the Armco barriers softly on the outside. It has been a tough day. Keeman's got serious heavy damage. That might be a retirement, and a huge retirement for the leader of, well, for 2nd place, which could be the leader now of the championship privateer-wise for Mark Ponick.
Yep, we're back, and you can see, wow, look, he is crab walking incredibly hard there. That's a big incident. We'll try to take a look and see if the replay is available. He hits this wall a ton here, just enough to really knock the stagger completely out of that car. He is in a world of hurt. That race it's over for him now.
It is absolutely over, and that will really hurt for IM Keeman, who drove so superbly for 40 laps of this race, and then the final couple have just completely fallen by the wayside. Alvarez again just covering off Paul Ilbrink, and if Paul's smart about this, and he plays the Alain Prost role here in this stage, is as IM Keeman has retired the car from this one outright. If you're smart, if you're Paul Ilbrink, you don't go and attack Javier Alvarez. You keep your incident points and you minimize and mitigate any risk.
It's still a good points day. You're still ahead of Alvarez. It is a lot closer, and you can think about it this way also. You've already, as you mentioned, you've already pushed your incident point limit with a drive-through penalty. You had all that stuff happen around you and to you on the first lap. This is a very solid day here, but he's a race car driver. He's going to go for it.
He is a race car driver. They all are race car drivers, and they all want to go for it. Traffic's not going to help Alvarez here, though. Look at the run that Ilbrink's got. This is going to be awkward.
Oh!
He gets pushed all the way to the wall then as they go through. He's now got to thread the needle with 3 wide. Here as they go through. Ilbrink on the inside. Alvarez trying to go around the outside. They almost make contact. Ilbrink's made the pass of the century.
I don't think there was any almost about that. There were a couple times there where Alvarez and Ilbrink made contact, and I honestly thought that Guadarrama was not going to leave enough room for Ilbrink to get around on that inside. What a sensational run down the front straightaway here.
I tell you what, Mika Hakkinen, Michael Schumacher and Ricardo Zonta have nothing on those three there trying to make that pass. That was sensational between them, and you will not see anything better than that in terms of a scrap for third place. It has again allowed Siard the chance, and Ilbrink here at this stage has just hit 20 instant points at that point in time, and he has been disqualified from the race. 0 points for Paul Ilbrink.
Oh, this goes to what we were just talking about. Just chill and let it just sit there. It was a fantastic move, but it certainly means a lot less now that it's taken him out of the race.
Well, a last stand, you could say, from Paul Ilbrink, but one that will massively hurt any identity that he was hoping to get out of this race. He will get no points, and once more, he allows that gap through for Javier Alvarez, who is now back on the podium at this moment in time, with just a lap and a half to go left in this one for Mark Ponick in the 34.
I'll tell you what, that was about as defiant an exit as you will ever see. He said, you know what, it might cost me the race, but I am making this pass work, and left with a fantastic moment here at the end of this race as Mark Ponick is about to do something I honestly didn't think we'd see him do this season. He's had a very, very good run this season. He's been a solid top 5 driver all season long, picked it up big time from where he was last season, and he is, about a minute away from getting his first win in the series.
It's been a tough 45 laps for everyone. There's been only one driver, maybe 2 in this field, who feel like they have driven the race of champions. Only 4 drivers find themselves on the leading lap at this point. There have been some late tears to be wept at this point in time. But for car number 34, he has been driving an absolutely sensational race. The Canadian making his way through at Schlussgold corner and over across now towards the 2 left-handers of Rauk and Wirth. This has been a race a long time in the making. Ponick's move, of course, this season to become a privateer has been one that many people have looked at and gone, that's an interesting one. Wasn't really expecting him to go on his own, but look at what going on his own has done. It's given him freedom to go out there and race his way as he makes his way through the final 2 corners. Jochen Rindt, one of the most famous champions ever to come from Austria, through Red Bull Mobile. Mark Ponick, first race win in eFormula Series.
Unbelievable fashion as well. Congratulations, well-deserved win. Some will probably say, well, with all the incidents with Ilbrink and Alvarez and the mistake that Alvarez made, Vasiliev, Gild, and Boozy being out in the first couple of laps, it really doesn't mean anything. Mark Ponick has won this race.
He certainly has, but keep an eye out on the driver who's coming home second. Christoph Siard has driven an absolute blinder here today. That is one way to make your debut happen, and he gets the result that's wanted. Alvarez, somehow, through all of that drama, has come out with a podium. And what will be very crucial about this podium as well here, Frank, is the fact that he gains big time on Gild and Vasiliev, who both retired.
Yep, absolutely. And he also gains and gets around Paul Ilbrink, who had that DQ. So, I mean, it's been a big day, a big day for a lot of people. Alvarez, not as big as it could have been had it not been for that mistake on pit road, but still, it's a really big, important day for him.
Yeah, some brilliant results. I don't think we're going to be able to talk to Mark Ponick, but let's get an overall result then up on screen for you then. Mark Ponick, 59 minutes, 48 seconds from 5th on the grid, picks up the win by 35.6 over Christophe Siard in 2nd position. Javier Alvarez will take the final place on the podium in 3rd. And surprisingly, the last finisher on the leading lap started today in 13th of 14. But it's 4th place for Marcellus Bruning, and big points there for him. 5th would go to Esteban Guadarrama, with Jeff Browning then in 6th position, a lap down on top of Guadarrama as well. Leonardo Fabian, 2 laps down. Ilbrink will be classified as a disqualification 3 laps from the end, along with Alexander Rogenbuck finishing 3 laps down, with I.M. Keenan out 5 laps from the end. Nathan Brumby, Pavel Vasiliev, Dave Guild, and Christoph Boozy, all retirements. Big retirements then from this race. A tough race, and I think one which we can say, Frank, will go down, some would say famously, others will say infamously, from this Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit.
Absolutely. This was an absolutely wild as they come race. We had a little bit of everything. The top drivers out early. A lot of close, tight battling all throughout the field. Incident point strategy, pit mistakes, a unique winner, a sim crash. We had everything here over the last couple of hours.
Yeah, and some wonderful hours we have had indeed. I wonder if we're going to get a chance here to grab a little conversation. We're going to bring Javier Alvarez in. Javier, first and foremost, do you have a copy of us, buddy?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody.
That was a roller coaster race for you. You had complete control of things up at the front of the field in the early stages, but it looked like the unsafe pit entry just completely threw a spanner in the works for it.
Yeah, I can't blame to anybody because it was my fault. But it's true, I was really using the calculator lap by lap, trying to put 1/10 faster than the driver behind. But that penalty from my racing, is crazy. 40 seconds per this and the blue flags for the rules in Formula Renault 3.5 is something that I honestly will ask to racing to review because this is a really amazing simulator, but this is not realistic. 40 seconds, the race was over, and then I was lucky at the end.
Yep, so very lucky, you could say, in that respect at the end there with that battle. Let's just talk through that final move because Paul Ilbrink, of course, got the disqualification about half a lap later, but that overtake between yourself, Ilbrink, and Guadarrama in the middle of that, what was going through your head when that happened as you tried to bring things into perspective? Because you looked like you were in a really, really tough, intense battle, and you were willing to push things to the absolute limit.
I saw that Paul was getting the pace during the race. When I think I was faster still on track. When I saw Paul going on the right, first thing I tried to do is to keep my line, so Guadarrama has to stay there, and Ilbrink had very few space. So my intention was to compromise the exit in turn 1 for Paul and see what happens. But he did it really well. He's a super class. You will know it.
And, of course, we need to talk about the championship now because after that third-place finish, all of the main rivals today getting a big 0 next to their names. You start to rocket up the order. You close that gap down. Do you feel that today, even though the race result from what it could have been wasn't the best, that you still come out of today with, you would say, a victory in some respects?
To be honest, I am not happy because it's like if today I lost a nice opportunity to win the race and some more points. Next 2 races are really difficult for me because I am leaving for holidays, so I have to negotiate with my wife if I can stay one more day here. But next 2 days is just the start and the end of my holidays. But I will keep that in secret, so the guys keep pushing and testing offline, waiting for me in the next races. Let's see if I can take part or not. If I can do it, I will try to to score points. What I see is that the people is assuming a lot of risks, and must be an advantage for me. But this season I had one DNF in last race. I couldn't avoid it, and the issue with my steering wheel. So it's going to be a bit difficult.
Going to be difficult, but the floor is yours, Javier. Negotiations with the better half, so to speak. On top of that, shout out sponsors. Anyone you'd like to thank?
Well, I would like to thank you first and the organizers, because they work in the super job in the broadcast, and also the sponsors, GRT, Sit One Dashboard, and Missing Cockpit, the last project who I recommend to everybody to have a look into their ways. And thank you to all the guys on track today. We need to fill the grid for the next one.
Javier Alvarez there, getting a third place finish then through all of that. Frank, I believe you're going to get an opportunity to talk to a driver who didn't quite get exactly what was wanted today, that being Paul Ilbrink.
Yeah, unfortunately, Paul, you had a fantastic move there at the very end, but unfortunately it ended up costing you your race and moving you down into the 8th position. What happened out there today?
Well, I figured out that it's probably not the best idea to learn a track and the track limits boundaries during a race that has a 10 incident penalty limit for giving you a drive-through and a 20 incident limit disqualifying you. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
It looked like a difficult race for you overall, making a couple of mistakes, spinning out a couple of times, a lot of close racing. Was it just unfamiliarity with the track? We know it's a new track in the sim, so it's going to be unfamiliar in this sim. But was it just unfamiliarity with the track overall that kind of took you out of it today?
No, I knew the track. I just hadn't driven it in the sim before, so I was hoping that like the 30 minutes of practice before qualifying would be enough to get up to pace, and that wasn't quite the case. Like I was quite far, quite a lot slower actually than most of the people. So I think the pace got like halfway in the race, but I already had the drive-through for the incident limit as well. And then towards the end, I think it was like I had to do the last 10 laps or something with like about one incident to spare or something. And then I just got that silly one after I made that move on Javier. So that was a shame that I didn't manage to finish the race, but it was fun.
Well, a track that you know probably a little bit better than this is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, which is where we go in 2 weeks' time. What are your thoughts going into the Canadian Grand Prix, and can you find that consistency again?
Well, my thoughts are that I've raced her a lot and also met the walls a fair amount of those races. So I hope to not hit him as hard this time and survive the race.
Fair enough. Anyone you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Just my teammates at Radicals Online and the partners and sponsors, and you guys for doing the broadcast, EFS for setting up this league, and that's about it for tonight.
All right, your 8th place finisher here tonight, Paul Ilbrink. It was a tough one, but congratulations either way.
Yeah, thanks.
User was moved out of your channel.
Well, you can certainly say here, Frank, that was a tough one for Paul Ilbrink. You can hear it in his voice there at the end that he wasn't the most happy with himself there for that one. But let's talk about where we're heading to 2 weeks from now. Of course, the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, another high-speed circuit, street circuits on top of that. If you think that the margins were very tough to deal with, of course, here today at the Red Bull Ring, well, Gilles Villeneuve isn't much more of a reprieve.
We do have one more interview. I'm just noticing now. That TeamSpeak user in there. That's our race winner.
It might as well be. So I tried to get a little bit of a conversation going, asking who's this. I believe this is Mark Ponick. Is it right?
I'm here if you can hear me.
Loud and clear. Mark, that is an incredible victory for you. You win by half a minute here at the Red Bull Ring. It seems like everyone around you who was trying to make something happen of a race fell into troubles, and you were the coolest head in a room full of 6 shooters, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on. That start was just messy. I don't even mean turn 1 following that with Pavel Javier and Keeman. We were sort of jockeying to see who could have the worst laps for the first couple, but then it sort of straightened out, and we all, I don't know, got better heads amongst us. But amazing, like I think Keeman came from 11th to 4th in 2 turns.
Incredible. You have to say that it was a hectic start, especially when Christoph went off the road. Guadarrama, I think, Leonardo Fabian got caught up in first corner. Second corner was just as much of a drama. But let's talk the mid-section of the race, because it looked like you were settling in quite nicely for a podium. You were keeping that gap consistent to the cars front and behind, and then all of a sudden, you see in the pit stop that Javier Alvarez is still stationary, and then, the race just seemed to fall away from everyone else, and you just had to keep it on the island to make sure a victory was secure.
Yeah, and ironically, I was going to start from the pits this race. Of all things, I got my second COVID shot yesterday. I was feeling like crap all night, got up late and remembered, oh my God, I have a race in 15 minutes, so I'll use quali for practice and go. But I was totally just following Javier. I had no intention of trying to catch him. Somewhere around lap 13, 15, I settled in. I think that's probably where you picked that up, and figured, you know what, I'll just maintain the 4-second gap, and who knows, this track leads to so many off tracks and so many issues because it's new and it's a bit tight on the off tracks. So, be calm, be cool, and see what happens. And then, yeah, he sat there in the pits, and the only thing on my mind was, are you bleep kidding me? And then just take it easy to finish off without screwing up.
And let's just talk about here the privateer standings. You jumped in midway through the season into those championship standings. I am Keeman with a non-finish here today. Means that you rocket up, if not take the lead there in terms of that element. So are you feeling now that you're really gathering momentum here with 3 races to go?
Yeah, I think so. It's, I'm not totally new to this car, but relatively. So I took some tips from some guys this week and basically just ran practice after practice after practice. So if it leads to the next tracks, that'd be awesome. I think, like most people, I have tracks where I'm good at and tracks where I'm not. Somewhere I'm really not. So Montreal doesn't tend to be a good one for me. Chicanes are an issue, but we'll see how it goes. It's such a fun league. I genuinely don't care, if I'm fighting for 10th or 1st or whatever. It doesn't matter as long as it's good fun.
As long as it's good fun indeed. But the win is yours. Any shout outs, any sponsors, anyone you'd like to thank?
Yeah, for sure. All the guys that set up the league. I know this is not ever an easy task. It's people can be a pain in the rear end, and you guys for putting on a great broadcast all the time. Sure, there's someone I should probably remember, but this was so unexpected. I just have no idea, but it was so much fun. Thanks, guys.
No worries at all then. Mark Ponick, then a deserved race winner then here from this wonderful circuit of the Red Bull Ring. Frank, second time we'll try it. Final thoughts. We leave here today at the Red Bull Ring, and we head to home territory, of course, next time out for Mark Ponick in the form of Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
It's a classic track. It's another one that drivers will have plenty of opportunities from past experiences and past games and past simulators to know that racetrack. And again, with Paul Ilbrink, he's raced on that racetrack many times here in this sim. It's a fun, technical, tight, winding racetrack with a couple of long straights in between. And I think, just going back to the Alvarez interview, I think if he wanted to earn a little brownie points to be able to race that race in a couple of weeks, probably should have thanked the wife.
Yeah, that is also very true. And what we can also say as well is that there might need to be a few I would say doping restrictions there. That second COVID shot has definitely helped Mark Ponick in terms of pace out there overall. But a massive thanks to everyone that has got everything all sorted out, has made sure that this has been an incredible race to go and cover. Of course, 2 weeks' time, we're going to be with you with that action at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. You'll definitely want to check that out. From Frank Marchese and myself, Jake Sparrow, it's been a pleasure once again. Everybody lost their head today. Dave Gill, Pavel Vasiliev, their races lasted less than 3 laps. Christoph Bouzy on top of that. Paul Ilbrink with pass of the century finds disqualification half a lap later. But on top of all of that, on top of every single thing that's gone through, Mark Ponick has found his first win here with the eFormula Series. Some say for Mark Ponick, it's coming home in 2 weeks from now, even at this point in time. But this championship never fails to disappoint. We'll see you 2 weeks at the Circuit of Gilles Villeneuve as we go to Canada and find some street circuit battling.